when you look at the time that you've put into stand up, the early years to me are always filled with shows where now you would go, I wouldn't take that. I wouldn't. Do you have any shows from the early days of your career where you're like, what was I thinking even saying yes to this?
It was, yeah, you always just you say yes to stage time when you first start because it's you never know when you're going to get it again, you know.
Mm-hmm.
um and those early years, like that show can make or break you for the week because that could be your only show, you know.
Right.
And I did one. It was like a memorial fundraiser for this girl who died in a car crash. And yeah, that's like, and when you say that now, you're like, oh, this is not good at all. But you know, when you first start, you're like, I can do this. And then you're maybe you have 5 minutes and they're like, can you do 15? And you're like, yeah. And it was outside under a tent opening for a band. So I don't even think people, they knew there was a band because there were instruments, but I don't think they knew there was any kind of comedy. So I go up and just perform to people, you know, talking. And it was like, it had been a couple months, so it wasn't like this somber type thing. It was just more of a celebration of
Mm-hmm.
life, but it was just me talking, and it was just so bad. So this guy comes up to me and he like taps on the bottom of the stage because the stage is like if you're standing, it's at your shoulders. It's way too high. And he was like, "You can wrap it up."
Oh my god.
And I was like, "So you want me to bring the band on?" And he's like, "Yeah." So then I introduced the band and I was like, "Give it up for," I don't even know what the band was anymore. And then they didn't come on, and it was like another 15 minutes before they even walked out. So, and then, that's one of those where you don't hang out around afterwards because then people will be
Right.
like, "Was that you up there?" Yeah, that was
Yeah.
me trying my hardest to make people who weren't paying attention laugh.
It's crazy because we are often, especially when you first start, you're often in situations that even some of the best comics would not thrive in.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have it in your head. You're like, I guess this is how it works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure. I don't know. Are you? I sort of go on both sides of this where sometimes I'll walk into a room or a show that's not set up well and I'll go, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And then other times I'll have this fake confidence, which never holds, where I'll go, oh, if anybody could do this, it's going to be me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm sure I can get these people to laugh. Do you have either one of those feelings?
Both. It's usually both, where I know
Yeah.
in my heart that this is not going to go well, and depending on where you are in the show, you could watch a couple openers and be like, man, I like you want to be like you want to grab your bag and just sneak out the back door.
Right.
And when they announce, it's like the band that I announced, they just don't show up. Uh, or you have like the fake confidence, and like I've done enough really bad shows to just know if I'm loud and I don't stop talking, uh like it can't go bad because I'm not giving it a chance to go bad. Of course it's going
Right.
bad.
Right.
I did another one. It was a place literally called the Roadhouse, which I should have known. And it was like their first or second week doing stand up, so of course all the TVs are on, and it's it's a cliched line, but it's like the people in the audience had never been out of their house. This is the first time, and this is their
Right.
first live performance. And that was one where it was just, usually I'm a fairly clean comic, but you had a place called Roadhouse, so it's just like you gotta you gotta just do whatever. So I come out swearing from the gate, and I get them. And I don't know that I kept them for the full 45, but at least for 10, I was like, man, I'm proud of myself for as well as this is going. And people in the back are still playing pool and whatever. And then you got the local guy who, like, he's there every night, so they're not gonna be like, could you leave? Because
Right.
they're making money off this guy. And eventually, the show was fine. And that's one of my more prouder moments in comedy. And like, if I showed that to anybody who wasn't familiar with comedy, they'd be like, why are you proud of this? But it's like, at least I got through this. and when I do those shows, I kind of in my head I'm like, well, at least I'm gonna have fun. Like I'm
Yeah,
here, you know.
right. You have to, it's the small victories
Hmm.
sometimes in this business where you, well, often where you go, well, maybe if I just make it out of it alive, right?
Hmm.
That is a win. Is that the, a place called the Roadhouse? I'm sure they attract the crowd that people are immediately thinking.
Hmm.
What do you think like the rowdiest or roughest crowd you've performed to is?
I did a show at a prison one time, and and it was in Lagrange, Kentucky, at the Luther Luckett Correctional Facility, and
Oh
it was
my
weird.
god.
Yeah, and I, you get the call, and it's either one of two things of like, I shouldn't do this because it's dangerous, or I'm gonna be like Johnny Cash. But the thing that it was like Johnny Cash, everybody knew him back then, so they were like, "Yeah, come on in." Me, I was
Right.
just a kid, and you pull up to the prison, and there's like two prisons on either side of this prison, so this is like, let's keep them all right here. And you got to leave your. I think I only brought my keys and my wallet. You couldn't take a phone. You could nothing else because you might be a security risk, and you had to go through the the metal detector. And in my head, I'm a big Metallica fan, and their video for the song called Saint Anger, they perform at San Quentin.
Hmm.
And in the beginning, like, if you're taken as a hostage, we will not exchange you for the freedom of an inmate or whatever. And in my head, I'm like, well, this is not good. Like, because that's playing in my head. And then so we were like mid court on a basketball court with like this Radio Shack mic set up,
Oh,
and it was like 300 prisoners on one side. It was like we were hosting a pep rally.
right.
And I opened the show, and of course, you just I don't know. I don't know what the best thing to do was, because I tried to go out and be confident, but I think the prisoners, they want you to like show that you're a little scared. Just acknowledge that this is weird. And it was weird because we were walking through like the yard area to get and it was just like one security guard, and she had like on her like left hand, she only had the pinky, like she didn't have any other fingers. And
Wow.
the with the walkie talkie, and the prisoners are walking up to us, and they're like, you guys are gonna be funny, right? And we're like, maybe, because it's like they knew what we were there for, because it's, I don't know how often they get a live performance, but this is the thing,
Right.
for that month. And they haven't seen us around, so we have to be the comedians. And the show ended up being okay. I did a joke, and somebody was like, you stupid, like they were enjoying it. So I was like, okay, that's cool. But it was just, and they weren't the rowdiest, but potentially could have been the rowdiest.
Yeah, but they had potential to be the most dangerous crowd, I would
Hmm.
assume.
Like
That's so
they've had prior convictions, apparently,
right,
like where they're,
right, yeah. They could prove it if they needed
yeah,
to. They
yeah.
had really good potential. It's so funny that as you're walking through, they just know you're the comics because it's like, well, word travels pretty fast here.
Yeah.
Like if
I
there's an
smell
event, we're all gonna know.
I smell fresh fish, like.
Right? Yeah.
And it was weird because like some of them in the audience like were wearing no shirt, some of them were wearing like the orange, but also some of them had like that, like the light brown on, and some of them had like those vests, like they had been working outside. The guy front row had an eye patch, and it was just all like taking in the picture of performing for these prisoners. I wish I could go back and not do that show again, but do another prison show, because I'd like to see how I'd handle it now.
Yeah. Yeah, that is almost like a scared straight episode but for comics. Like if
Yeah.
if that's what they should do if you start comedy at like year 2, they should take you to a prison and be like, "Do you still want to do this?" Like, "Are you sure you want to do this to your life?"
You gonna get
That's
a job? You gonna
right,
move out of your
exactly.
mom's house? Yes, I am. I
Yeah,
promise.
right. It's insane. So on I love to know like on the way there and on the way back from a show like that, sort of what's going through your head. So on the way there, you're nervous, you're excited. What's the feeling?
Yeah, it was both, and I live in Indianapolis, and so
Hmm.
maybe that's like a 3 hour drive. I rode with my friend Jeff, who was the feature, and we knew the guy who was the headliner, who I don't know if I knew at the time, but he's a comedian, but also he's a teacher, and he goes into prison and teaches Shakespeare and acting to prisoners.
Oh
That's like a
wow.
side gig that he does, or when he's not doing stand up. So he handled it pretty well, but Jeff in the middle just came out and he was like, I got to be honest with you guys, I am terrified right now, and they love that. That's the thing. It's like either you have to come out with all this the swag in the world, all the swagger in the world, or you got to be like, look, I know this is your house,
Right.
and like at least show them that the pecking order. And I think that was the right choice. But on the way, it was like, what if you bomb? Then it's like you can't just leave because they got to walk you out, you know.
Right, right, right.
And it was
There's
also,
no there's no running to the car real quick,
yeah,
you know.
there's no merch, there's no that merch table moment, and it was weird because then you perform and then you just turn around and walk back to the bench. You just go sit on the bench and they can all see you, and you're watching the next guy perform. And it was just it was nerves before and after the show. And I think I talked to Jeff about it since then, and we're both glad we did it, and we would do it again. But it's just such a an odd experience. Like, it's not conducive for comedy. And I'm sure you've been in a situation where you do a show and maybe there's like a group of 10 off from work, and if you lose those 10, because whatever their inside joke is, it's not going to be as funny as you.
Hmm. Right,
So
exactly.
like 300 prisoners in their house, it's like if you lose it, it's over. Like it literally could be over.
Right.
And there was one guard. I forgot to mention that, like, one guard for the whole show, with again with the walkie talkie. So it wasn't like there were people stationed around the basketball court. Obviously, I think if something would have happened, they would have had the walkie talkie, but there was like one guard and that was it.
It's funny because it's like if something would have happened, I'm sure more people would have shown up. But with one guard and
Hmm.
three comics, one of the comics is probably not making it out of there.
Yeah,
It's just by the time it's a real time issue. It's like, all right, well, if it takes five guards, 8 minutes to get here, someone's not making it.
yeah. So
It's
somebody's either going to be a hostage or going to get traded for something, or
right.
yeah.
I love the idea that you go, I'm gonna be like Johnny Cash because that's such a mentality I feel like for comics where you look at a situation and you go, whether it be Johnny Cash or you go like, well, Bill Burr does this, so that or Dave Attell does something like this, so I'll do that, and
Hmm.
then you realize, oh, but they're famous, right?
Hmm.
That's what's different between me and Johnny Cash and Bill Burr is that people want to see them.
Hmm.
You know,
And
it's nuts.
was it Jeff Ross that did the special in prison or something?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, just so that's I don't know. Like, obviously it was like that's planned out. Let me get the camera set up and stuff. But I watched some of that and I couldn't tell you a joke from it, but I'm like, okay, this is good. I like this because he's kind of roasting people in the
Right.
audience, but it's
Right.
like I don't know these guys. You can't just be like, look at this guy right here with this no shirt. Like, you can't be like, look at this tattoo for white
Right.
supremacy. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah. Right. It's hard to do that as the MC. It's hard
Yeah.
to take that risk. I while we're walking down memory lane, I would love to talk about. Do you have a show where you didn't perform well and it sort of has stuck with you since? Like, I feel like I have one or two shows that I bombed, and every time I think I'm doing well, I always remember that over my shoulder. I go, well, don't forget that you did have that one night at the ski lodge or whatever it is. Do you have any shows like that?
Yeah, the one, it's always like the that moment in the back of your head that's always like the great humbler. It's like, okay,
Right.
don't get cocky, kid, for Star Wars, or that Star Wars moment. But it was it was all my fault, but it was two people sitting right on the stage. The club I was at like had like that like that sushi bar stage where like
Yes.
you could put your foot up on the on their table area, and like these two people, and they weren't, that wasn't malicious. I just think, again, never have seen a live performance where they're just talking right up front and nobody else can hear it, but to me it's loud, you know. And I do what I normally, I just try to ignore it, or like you even change your placing on the stage, so you, I normally will walk directly in front of those people, and so I feel big, and maybe they're like, oh yeah, this guy's here performing, or you get loud, or you just stop talking, and they'll be like, oh, we forgot that there's a show, but they no, didn't pick up on any of the clues, so just mid joke, I just was like, can you guys stop talking? And nobody else knew that they were talking. And so I looked like an asshole for everybody. And then I was doing like a half hour, and that was probably, 10 minutes in. So then I had 20 minutes to try and reset and get the audience back, because now I'm just an asshole
Right.
yelling at these people up front, and I just never got them back the whole show. And that's always just been in my head of like, I should have just been like, "Hey, guy, can you keep it down?" And give them a couple times where I acknowledge, "Hey, they're being loud." And that's the one thing that, when you don't, nobody really tells you that when you first start doing stand up, because whenever like somebody that doesn't do comedy will be like, they want to know what happens when they're not laughing and what happens when you get a heckler, because the heckler moment's always like, do I come to yo job, like they're just slamming people and the audience loves it.
Right.
But if nobody knows why you're doing that, then they're like, why is he being a dick all of a sudden?
Yeah. Yeah, that it's a real fine line of like making sure the audience is on your side,
Hmm.
you know. I've made the mistake a couple times if I'm not first on stage, where if I notice the audience is a little chatty or rowdy, the longer it goes, the more you get into your head, you're like, I'm going to be the one to set them straight. I'm going to go up there, and then you get up there with all this built up energy, and you sound like you're insane. You're like, everyone shut up. And they're like, whoa, man, like, and then you just come off as the bad guy.
Yeah, it's like if you're in a relationship and you just let everything slide until that very last argument. And you're like, you remember last year on a Thursday when you did, and it's people are like, whoa, where did this come from? Like
Right,
you have so much
exactly.
of that energy built up. And then a lot of times, if it doesn't go well, you've just sacrificed your whole time on stage,
Right,
and
right.
then, but also like if you're the host, I've gone up plenty of times and been like, well, this isn't going to be good, but at least it will be good for everybody else.
Yeah. Oh God, that bullet spot is so, it lives up to its name so often,
Hmm.
where you're just like, well, I guess I'm falling on this grenade so
Hmm.
everyone else can have a good time,
Yeah.
and no one will remember me.
No, yeah, I'll just be a roadside memorial, real small, and then I'll perform at your show. uh,
Oh my God, that's so true. Oh my God. Do people, when they see you on social media, have you had this yet, where an audience comes and they don't get the joke, and then they have a hard time then making the connection that, oh, is this been a bit the whole time, or they go, why is he acting like this, this is not how he is on Instagram? Have you ever had that yet?
I've had people, because I think the people that, and you know, if you're not aware of who I am, what I would do, it's a like a political satire. So anytime you've seen a guy rant in a truck about millennials getting trophies or something,
Right,
that's the type of guy. And it's very, the past, 7 or 8 months, it's been very Trump oriented, because those are the type of people that would rant in their truck.
right.
Um, and it's been weird because I've been doing that character for 4 years, but in the last year, since a pandemic hit, it's really, skyrocketed in views and numbers and stuff like that. But before I was doing that, and I never had anybody show up and be like, you're not that redneck guy. Mostly people were just, they weren't aware that I even did stand up, which
Right.
like they would show up and be like, we had no idea what you were going to do, but at that time, I had been doing stand up for 13 or 14 years.
Right.
So it'll be interesting because now I've done a couple shows during the pandemic. But for the most part, I just have not pursued it because I don't want to be out in it, or I don't want to be the reason that people gather in large groups. But I've done a couple shows, but it'll be interesting after all this is over to see what people think, because my social media numbers have gone way up, but I've not really had like a formal opportunity to be like promote it really hard and heavy and then have people come out. Because again, I think some people still don't know that I do stand up, and that's probably just on me letting people know, because somebody will respond to one of my videos and be like, oh, this is a parody account. He just does, but it's like, it's not a parody. It's just me doing videos, but that clearly, I change my bio around sometimes and it'll say comedian,
Right.
here's my website and stuff. It's like, it's never been easier to find information than right
Right.
now, when you
Right.
literally can click one link and find out everything I've ever done, but people don't take the time to do that. So I'm interested to see if people will be like, you're not doing that thing that you did. And I'm like, sorry, man. It's just, and it's how long can I be mad for? More than 2.5 minutes. Do you want to see me mad for 45? Because I don't.
Right. Well, it's funny and it's refreshing for, like you said, if people don't know that you are a comic, you are first and foremost a comic, and you have seen it. I'm sure the people that are influencers or YouTube stars, and then they go and they do an improv somewhere, and you're like, well, what's the show? And they go, well, they play a couple videos and they do some Q&A, and it's like, I, I am always on the side of, well, that's not entertaining, right? That's like you said, how long can someone watch you be mad? 2 minutes, 3 minutes? So the fact that I think that you have an act to do still is good and it's refreshing. So for people that are unaware of it, it's hopefully a pleasant surprise,
Mm-hmm.
because for me, I don't know if I could watch 45 minutes of any one note thing, right? You want there to be some sort of up and down, you know?
Yeah, you just because essentially I'm just doing the videos on stage, which you've already seen. So that's why, like, hopefully the stand up thing is, here's the thing that I can sell you. Like,
Right.
come to the
Right.
show. Here's the extra thing that you're not really aware of what I do, and I am very aware of. It's like, if like Radiohead didn't want to play Creep forever,
Right. Right. Right.
I'm very so. I've tried to work on something that is, part of that. So it's like, people, if they show up, they don't, because the whole thing, if you got a babysitter and you paid to park, I don't want you to leave my show and be like, man, that wasn't that good. I can't believe we wasted our one night out for the next 8 months on this dude. I never want that to happen. So, but I'm very aware. It's like, play Creep. Okay. Okay.
Right.
I'll try to figure out a way to be mad for a little bit to entertain you.
It's such a strange business, isn't it? Where you have to do certain things, not in a bad way, but you do certain things, whatever the thing is that takes you to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, and then people go, well, what about that? It's the hot pockets thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Hot
that
pocket.
was
Yeah.
right. Maybe that is the first case of this, where you go, finally, thank God, something finally broke me. And
Mm-hmm.
then you go, well, all right, but it can't be the only thing. But that's all people want sometimes, you
Yeah,
know?
do the hits. Just behind you is Steve Martin, and they
Right.
want it's, they were saying his punchlines and stuff before he even got them out, and which is, that's not a bad thing too. If like, because I saw Gabriel Iglesias one time in a theater, and like, he would do, like, at the end of his set, do like the classic bits, and the audience would just say the words with him when he said them, and I was like, that's really cool. Like, it's like that fine balance of, okay, here's my new stuff, but also, here's the hits as well.
Yeah, it's probably a thing where you go, I can tolerate doing some of these jokes that maybe I don't like to do because I'm in a theater or in an arena. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But if you're at the Roadhouse,
Yeah, right.
like,
Yeah, exactly. When you look back, sort of as you're prepared to come out of this pandemic and continue to take off, as you look back at your career, the shows like the Roadhouse, the Prison Show, all those bad shows, what do you think they give you that makes you a better comic today?
they give you the you build up a confidence. And I don't know if that was a moment for you, like even a couple years into stand up, I realized I was somewhat good at it,
Right.
and that then that confidence translated to the rest of my life. For some, like I found something I was good at,
Right.
and then the more you do it, your confidence level goes up. And then it's that weird feeling of like, I don't care if this show goes well, but I also care a lot that the show goes. It's that fine line of like, you can't you can't show them that you're sweating, but
Right.
you have to act like this is not going to make or break you, because it's not. But also, again, I want you to leave my show enjoying it. So it's putting in those reps that you really can't, you there's there's no, you can't recreate or replicate experience. It's just that thing that you have to do. And it just prepares you to stand there in the middle of the basketball court and not uh cower if something doesn't go well.
Right.
Now I can go up, and if it's not going well, this is another show, and I'll just hit them with the next joke and hit, and that you build up that material. So, like I was like, I don't stop talking. I'm loud. Before it was like I had to talk slow and I had to do it literally every joke I had. But now you build up over time, and it's like I can do an hour of material in 45, because all I'm supposed to do is 45, So
Right.
it's
Right.
just those reps that you can't replicate.
Yeah, and it's I think you s- brought something up that's important to note when you were beginning that, where you say that you're getting good at this,
Mhm,
right? And I think it's sometimes hard for comics to admit that they're good at comedy,
mhm,
right? Where we have this sort of such a self-deprecating, like, if I think I'm too good, then I'm never going to make it, that kind of thing. I need to stay hungry mentality, where you do have to eventually realize, oh, I am good at this and I better believe it so they all believe it too, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely the guy that's, I try to undersell myself at every turn, because
Right.
again, once you start, you get, to believe your own shit, then you get the people talking up front and you yell at them and you lose the audience. Like that's that moment that keeps coming back, is don't be that guy again.
Right.
And it's one of those things where at least you have to know your worth, and at least value yourself, like you said, so they will.
Yeah, yeah, you have to if you don't believe it, kind of who else will,
Hmm.
because so much of this business is being your own hype man,
Hmm.
until other people are willing to do it for you.
Yeah, nobody's
Um
gonna do it until you can make them money.
yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. That's always with people, like, younger comments and stuff, when they ask, like, is there a secret? Is there this, that? Yeah, the secret is to be really, really good.
Mhm,
And then that way someone goes, I think we could capitalize off of this
mhm.
person. Like
Let's take
that's it.
advantage of this person.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
exactly.
please take advantage of me. I would like to be, I'd not have to do my own booking and stuff, but
Yeah, right. Well, it's funny because I think you bring up a good point, where if people don't know, you're a comic, so you're a writer, you're now a video producer, an
Mhm,
editor, probably. You're doing social media, and then on top of that, you're booking travel, you're trying to manage accommodations. So you're doing like 14 different jobs, and then people will go, "Well, that must be nice to work an hour a night." You're like, you have no idea. You have
yeah.
no idea.
Then you feel bad because you're like, I only had one new joke in that set, but it's like I drove 4 hours to get that. It's like
Right.
I'm a big wrestling fan, and I feel like stand up is similar to wrestling. Wrestling is harder because you also can't eat like garbage on the road. You
Right.
have to go work out, but you drove 8 hours to do your 10-minute spot, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And we sometimes forget that that's a part of the work, where we go, like you said, we go, ah, man, that one joke didn't land. But I did, put in 300 miles of my car,
Mhm.
and I did a show where other people couldn't have done it. And we have to take a couple wins every once in a while.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to ask you this before we get out of here. One of my favorite questions to ask guests, because I'd like to see where the similarities are and where other people's differences are. After a bad show, whatever it is, whether it's one or two jokes doesn't land and you just don't feel it, or it's a complete nightmare, what is the coping mechanism? What is the thing that you like to do to pick yourself up out of that? Or is there not a thing and you just like to sit and sort of stew in it?
Um, it's a combination of both. It's usually good or bad show, and I need to change it, but it's a drive through. So if I'm on the road, it's like you're gonna eat late anyway. But that's either I'm gonna get the same amount of food whether I'm rewarding myself or punishing myself. But it's also usually on the way to a gig. It's like I try to be in silence, no radio, no podcast, no nothing. So usually after a show, it's like now I get to listen to my little stories.
Right.
But if it's a bad show, it's silence, and I'm like, how did that go wrong, and what can I do better? And that I should do that more of, rewatch the tape, and even I should tape. That's the thing, is like I should be recording everything to see and rewatching back. But then it's also, now I'm a guy that watches my own videos. For you can watch the 45-minute video up on top of the other stuff that we just mentioned. But it's usually like a self-reflection, be like, how did that go wrong, why did that go wrong? And a lot of times, if it's a I consider a bad show, it was all on me. Like Roadhouse wasn't a bad show, but if I messed up jokes, or usually the audience can't tell, but I know.
Right.
So
Right.
it's either I need to go into this a little more focused than I have been, or just something was wrong and I need to be better. That's a bad show for me.
And I think that is progress. That's the only way you can progress in this, where you're willing to listen to the tape, to watch the video, because there really is nothing more excruciating than listening to yourself or watch yourself perform,
Hmm.
especially if it's a bad show. But how else do you how else do you know if you're not watching the tape, right?
Hmm.
you know uh, I can't thank you enough for doing this and taking the time to do this. Like I said, I am sure people know where you are, who you are, but if for the one or two people that are listening that have missed the last few months, tell people where to find you.
Yeah, a lot of the videos that I've done in the past, pandemic, however long this lasts, are on YouTube, or Twitter is kind of the other thing where I've really taken off. And then I do a couple podcasts. I do one with Ryan Niemiller, who got third on America's Got Talent
Hmm.
a couple years ago, and with Johnny LaQuasto, he was an announcer for WWE. So that one is called the Cafeteria Podcast. That's out every Friday. And then my own show that I just do myself is called The Field Trip. And one of our most recent episodes was the things that people got stuck inside of themselves, 2020 edition. They do a new list every year, parody religions, um, stuff like that. So that's kind of topic based, the kind of the history of memes, and that one's called The Field Trip.
Well, again, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, man.